We on, brother.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
We the bros from the Great Millstone Chicago branch coming with another lesson to the Spirit Power YAHAWASHI. Before we start, I start by giving all praise and glory due to Yahawah,
YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM,
BAHASHAM,
YAHAWASHI,
YAHAWASHI,
BAHASHAM,
BAHASHAM,
Rakakadash.
Rakakadash. I belong to the Apostles of Great Millstone Will. And say this, are you brethren doing this work in truth and in sincerity? All right, I'm the brother Yaquab.
Brother, I will you.
All right. Lord, and be exhorting, uplifting, edifying, to the elect. All right. But we just gonna touch on hope, man. Keeping your hope in Yahweh Bashim and Yahweh Shah, man. All right. Because if you keep your hope in anything in this world, all right, you will be confounded, man. All
Yeah.
right. As the scripture tells us, in Isaiah, what's that? Isaiah 30, man. All right. It said, it's like, I'm gonna just grab it real quick. You know what I'm saying? What is the
Uh, like the brother had left out. Let me see.
hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So like, uh, uh must
It
have went
had
out. But
cut completely out.
yeah, let me grab this Isaiah 30 though. So like,
Come. It's all good.
so this is um this is Isaiah 30 and verse 1. It says, "Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel but not of me, and that cover with a covering but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin, that walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked in my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh and to trust in the shadow of Egypt." It says, "Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because everything these people, all right, trust in and hope in, all right, is gonna be their shame, man, and their confusion because they don't have their hope and their trust in Yahweh Shah, man. Right? They have their hope in these carnal in the world, man. All right, they have their hope in Esau, Edom, in this beast system, which all these things are, hastily passing away, man. All right,
Mm-hmm.
our people, they don't have faith in Yahweh Shah. I just could say they have a zeal, but not according to knowledge, man. A lot of our people say they love the Lord, but truly don't love the Lord. They don't even know who the Lord is, man. All right, you know. So a lot of our people are going to be confounded in that day, man. All right, because they trusted in the philosophies and the doctrines, all right, of Esau, Edom, man. All right, instead of listening to the Lord's true prophets, man, which starting with the apostles of Great Millstone on down, right? Those are men of the Lord, man, who's teaching you, the true doctrine, all right, of Yahweh Bashim outside, man. All right, but
Yep.
with that, I'm gonna grab another precept. This is Jeremiah 17:7. It says, "Blessed is the man that trusteth in Yahweh, whose hope
Yep.
is in the Lord." Right. So, hey, blessed is that man who trusteth, Yahweh, whose hope is in, the Lord, man. Why? Because hey, that hope is gonna flourish, man. All right. Hey, our
Mm-hmm.
hope, we're not gonna be confounded, man. The righteous isn't gonna be confounded, man. All right. As long as you keep your integrity, right? What scripture says, second, what's that, Sirach 2? You know,
Yep.
who has ever put their trust in the Lord?
And was confounded. I actually
Uh,
got that right here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You gotta.
This is I got you right here. Connection be around this part, but I got you right. This is the book of Sirach. Salakia, let me grab this real quick. Internet
Nah,
is
you
kind of
good.
fluky.
Nah, you good. Yeah, man. Shit. What it talks about in Hebrews 11. It talks about the faith. That our forefathers had, man. You know, hey, that's the same faith we gotta have, man. And our forefathers, they was never confounded, man. All right, the Lord always came through for them, man. Right? Hello. I think something happened with the brother. But Abraham, right? Isaac, Jacob, right? A hello.
Yeah, bro. Salaki about that. I don't know what had happened. Whole internet just went out for a minute. But
Nah, you
let me
good.
grab this real quick. Salakia for the inconvenience. But this is the book of
Nah,
Sirach, chapter 2, verse 10. And it reads, look at the generations of old. Bro, what the heck? That's weird. Oh, because the KJV Bible app is down. That's what it is.
yeah,
But
yeah, I seen
this
that
the
too.
book. I'm gonna come back to it. Can I just grab the definition of hope real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had looked up the meaning of hope, the meaning of the biblical definition of hope. It says a confident or sure expectation and Yahweh's promises and faithfulness. So ultimately it's an expectation. The different said things that Yahweh Shemal Shai, ultimately, you know, um, said that was going to happen, written throughout the scriptures, ultimately what those said things are going to happen. We expect those said things to happen. If I may, real quick, this is the book of Romans 15 and verse 4, and it reads, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. Right. So we look at these, said things, that's written, that ultimately what the prophets ultimately endured. That when Yahweh Shema Shai said, if you ultimately, endure certain things, these said things will happen. Ultimately, what? We look back at these certain things and ultimately what it builds upon our faith, builds upon our expectation, man, that we know that these said things are going to happen.
Yeah. Hey, what the scripture says, the things that were written aforetime were written for our learning, man, that we through comfort, and patience of the scriptures might have hope. you know.
Yep.
So these accounts, hey, through the spirit was written for us in these last days, man. You know, so that we can have, the understanding, of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. You know what I'm saying? The understanding of the spirit of the men of the Lord, the spirit, the right spirit to be in, man. You know what I'm saying? These accounts,
Hmm.
man, hey, they was written for our betterment, man. And Lord will shit, a lot of these accounts were written, by us shit, in the reincarnation, man. Hey, who because hey, those men are back here today, man. You know,
Yep.
hey,
I got that
in the
Sirach
same lot.
for you too, Yaquab.
You got it, bro.
Consalaki. This is the book of Sirach 2 and verse 10. Look at the generations of old and see did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded, or did anybody abide, or did anybody Salaki, or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken, on whom did he ever despise that called upon him?
hmm Yeah, man. So hey, that's scriptural, man. And hey, that's facts, man. As long as you keep your trust in Yahweh Shema Shai, look at the generations of old, man. All right, has anybody ever truly put their trust in the Lord, right? In truth and sincerity and righteousness, and was confounded? No. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, maybe the Lord, tried them, to test their faith, but at the end of the day, they wasn't, ashamed of Yahweh Shema Shai. You know what I'm saying? The Lord didn't, just leave them hanging, man. All right, you know, unless they did something that was wicked, man. You know, but
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, if you have your trust in Yahweh Shema Shai, a and in the prophecies that's written in the scriptures, you're not gonna be ashamed, man. As long as you keep the hope until the end, right? I believe my headphones just died too. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right, yeah, my headphones died because you out. Okay, but yeah, you know. So hey, man, look at the generation of old and see anybody trusting the Lord was confounded. No, man, right? And that's what the Lord is looking for, true believers, man. The Lord said, hey, He's seeking for, those, you know, He's looking for the true worshipers, man. Roughly paraphrasing, man. To worship Him in truth and in spirit, man. Right?
Yep.
So, hey, if you
And
not coming, what you gonna say?
I was going to say, just to add on to that point, not, how ultimately, really going back to the prophets also, how ultimately, during the time of Yahweh Shai, they believe even back then that the kingdom was going to come right then and there. But ultimately, you had the prophets coming back in this time. Even back then, they ultimately knew that what, even though they didn't receive the promise at that time, that what, that ultimately it was going to come eventually, man. They had that hope, they had that expectation that Yahweh Shema Shah was going to reward them with said things.
Yeah, yeah, man. And they believed the scriptures wholeheartedly, man. They was ready to die, right? Like Paul said, he said, "I'm not only ready to be bound, but also to die, man." So he
Hmm.
didn't care about going to jail, for the gospel's sake, man, because he was doing the right thing. He had faith, man, right? But he was also ready to die, man, right? And hey, that's the type of faith, you know, the Lord is looking for, man. And the scripture says, "There's no greater love than a man have for his friend, they lay down his life." And Yahweh Shah
Hmm.
laid down his life for us, man, right? So that's faith right there, man. That's hope. Bro. Now we know in these last days, it ain't gonna be like 70 AD, man. Hey,
Hmm.
the Lord gonna set that standard, but some bros some bros might be martyrs, man, right? But for the most part, Jake, Jake gon' you know, the Lord gonna protect bros, man, right? But hey, if it come down to it, man, right? That's how hard your hope gotta be, man. Your faith, you gotta believe that the Lord is gonna lift you up first, man. That's written in the
Hmm.
scriptures, man. The ones who died, and Yahushua is gonna be raised first. See, that's the hope, man. We have, man, right? And hey, we're not gonna be ashamed, man, right? Now, if you go ahead and take that chip or sell out, guess what, bro? You're gonna be ashamed, man, if you ain't keep your hope in the Lord, right? I got a precept. This is
Uh,
Psalms 27:13. It says, "I have fainted unless I believe to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." Right? So I have fainted unless I believe. Right? So you gotta believe, man. Gotta have that hope, man. Right? That's what keeps us from fainting, man. Right? That's what keeps us from giving up. Right? You know that we
yeah.
believe that Yahweh Shah is gonna return to His place. Right? And they destroy these kingdoms, or all these different kingdoms. And set up, the kingdom of heaven, man. With Yasharala being the ruling government, man, right? Hey, because everything else the Lord said was gonna happen, right? You know, shit. We fell as a nation. All right, went into captivity, so forth and so on, man, right? You know,
Yeah.
now we waking up, stand upon our feet, northern and southern kingdom, right? Hey, we see, the wars and prophecy playing out the way it's supposed to, man. So hey, it's about that time, man. You gotta hold on, man. Right?
Yeah.
It's
I actually got
you
a
got it,
quick
bro.
one for you, like what?
You got it, bro.
This is the book of First Timothy's 4. Just mentioning about the Apostle Paul, how he ultimately kept that hope and that expectation, and that faith until the very end. This is the book of First Timothy's 4 and verse 6. For I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith. Henceforth, is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me only, but unto all them also that love his appearing. And right when Apostle Paul was on the scene, he didn't get the crown right then and there, but he had that hope, he had that expectation. When he comes back in the regeneration, he's ultimately going to get that reward, man. For ultimately the work that he put in. Hey, the same, you know, the same, men that's in his truth today, man. That's ultimately standing 10 toes down for Yahweh Shem Shah. And we ultimately expect, the reward that's to come, man. That hope, that expectation. We expect these things, man.
That's right. And guess what, man? As long as we keep that hope, we're not gonna be ashamed, man. Right? See, we we got the Willy Wonka ticket, man. We just
Mhm.
gotta believe it, man. You know what I'm saying? It's like a nigga getting a Willy Wonka ticket and be like, man, this shit ain't real. This was just an ad. This is for ad. You know what I'm saying? Like certain guys say that the scriptures is just full of it's just metaphors and just uh, fable stories. These things was just written so you could take certain points out of them. You know, like the shit. It's just all fable, man. It's just lessons. You know how like, hey, bro,
Mhm.
You froze. My bad. I didn't know if you were still here. But you know how
Yeah.
like you would watch a cartoon and they, at the end it's a moral of the story, but the shit ain't real. It's just the cart. That's how people look at the scriptures, man. Like
Hmm.
it's just nah, man. This is true history. This actually happened. True miracles that actually happened, right? You know, and hey, the Lord is gonna come back, and he's gonna make that known, right? You know, and all these people that scoffed and that scorn is gonna be ashamed. Especially Jake. I ain't really talking about the heathens. I'm talking about you Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, true Hebrew Israelites, right? Um, I'm gonna grab. This is Proverbs 13 and 19. It says, "The desire accomplished is sweet to the soul." It says, "But it is abomination to fools to depart from evil." The desire accomplished is sweet to the soul, right? And it's gonna be sweet, all right, to us, you know,
Yep.
when our desire is accomplished. And what's our desire, man? Hey, the Lord returning, all right, salvation, the kingdom of heaven, so forth and so on, man, right? You know, servants, handmaids, bondmen, bondwomen, so forth and so on, man, right? Being, out this flesh, so forth and so on, man, right? And that's what we're fighting for, man. And hey, brothers have sacrificed their whole life, right? Starting with the apostles, right? 40 years, 30, 30 years, 20 years, 15, 10 years, whatever the case may be, man, 5 years, whatever, right? Brothers laid it down on the line, being living sacrifices. Why? For the hope, all right, that we have in Hamashiach, man, you know? So when that desire is fulfilled, man, it's going to be sweet, man, right?
Yep.
You know? But if you don't, if you lose that hope, then you're going to be ashamed when it comes. Hey, woe to him
Yep.
that lost patience, man. Right? You got something?
Yeah, Khan. Real quick, this is the book of Hebrews 11:6. It says, "But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Yahweh must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him." Right? Without faith, it's ultimately impossible to please Yahweh Basham Yahushua, man. You have to, have that hope. You have to have that, belief, hey, that Yahweh Basham Yahushua is going to reward you, man. You know, can't be second guessing. You can't be, backtracking. Because it's we just ultimately have to have that faith, in Yahweh Basham Yahushua throughout the scriptures will come to pass, man. That the Lord will crown us. That ultimately what that He's going to give us the kingdom, and you have to believe these things, man. And ultimately, what the hopeful righteous elect will have that hope, and have that expectation, and have that faith that these said things will happen, man.
That's right. That's right. I got one for you.
Con,
This is and this is my last one actually. This is
con.
Psalms 119:50. It says, "It is my comfort." It's like this is my comfort in my affliction, for thy words have quickened me. Right? And hey, this is our comfort, man. And our affliction, man. Hey, because hey, surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, man. All right, we
Mm-hmm.
understand the predicament that we're in, man. All right, and we're being afflicted, man. All right, we're being oppressed, right? You know, but guess what? It's this word that we have hope in that comforts us, man. All right, once you take this away, you know, hey, who knows, man? Hey, you out here, man, right? No hedge, man, right? And that's why the scriptures talks about, hey, they both shall suffer the straight, but we have hope for the wide, man. Roughly paraphrasing the Apocrypha, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because hey, all of Jake is going through it, but they like, all right, they have hope, which see how about you now, shot, man. These other people out here are just through, man. Swallowed up amongst the Gentiles, man, through, man, right? You know, far from the Commonwealth of Israel,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, man. Did you have something, bro?
No, that was pretty much all I had.
Shit, Khan. So hey, this is our hope, man. I hope won't be ashamed. Also, like, yeah, I had one more actually. This is
Con.
Let's see. You know what? Let me see this. Uh, I'll just quote it. Hey, the scripture says, the light of the just is as a righteous light. I mean, the light of the just is as a light shining brighter and brighter into that perfect day.
Con.
So our light is shining brighter and brighter, while the light of the wicked is being put out, man. Right? And hey, man, no man knows that day nor hour, but guess what? We know, all right, that the Lord is not a man that he should lie. The things that's written, all right, will come to pass, right? So,
That's
hey,
right.
hey, we got this wisdom, knowledge, understanding. You know, we gotta hold on, man. The Lord could have gave this to anybody, man, right? You know, so that's it. I ain't gonna make it long, drawn out. But hey, Lord, that was edifying, uplifting, exhorting to the elect. We're gonna end it off by giving all praise and glory due to Yahweh,
Yahawah, BAHASHAM,
Yahweh Shai,
YAHAWASHI,
Yahweh
BAHASHAM,
Shai,
Rakakwadash,
Allah said, possibly a mill somewhere well, and set your next time, Shalom, and a Bible ball.
Ababa Shalom.